together with American songwriter, we had the chance to talk to Natalie Claro.
Adam was able to talk to Natalie on the phone. She just released a music video for her song Discomposure.
Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Natalie Claro.
Hey, what's up? It's Natalie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Very cool. Awesome. Do you know anything? Our podcast is all about your journey in the music industry and how you got to where you are today.
Awesome. I actually took a look at your Instagram. I saw you guys followed me, so thank you for that. And yeah, it looks really cool what you guys do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I checked out your Instagram as well. It's awesome. So I read that you are currently in New York City. Were you born there, raised there?
So I'm actually not in New York anymore. I just moved to Nashville like 5 days ago.
Oh, awesome. That's rad.
Yeah, it was kind of spur of the moment. I mean, I had wanted to for a while, but I kind of took advantage of an opportunity to just kind of come down here now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it says New York, because I was just from there now. So yeah, I was born in California, and then I lived in Tampa, Florida for about 6 years, and then I moved to New York when I was 17 with my family, and then now I'm here.
Okay. So tell me, what part of California were you born in, if you don't mind me asking?
Long Beach.
Oh, Long Beach, rad. We're in San Diego. That's what I was curious.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. How long were you in Long Beach? Not very long, or?
So it was around 6. I was just there a few months ago, right before all of this craziness happened, for a show. So it was nice to see it again.
Oh, cool. So you went from Long Beach, you said, to Florida, then to New York, and now Nashville.
Yes.
Okay. Right on.
It's great, all over the place.
Yeah. Well, tell me how did you get into music originally?
I don't think I've ever really got into music, if that makes sense. I think it just was I don't really remember a point where I was like, oh, I'm going to start playing instruments, because I always have. I think my first time ever touching something was a harmonica when I was 3, and I was like, I want to mess with this for a little bit. And then my grandpa got me a piano when I was 5, and then
cool.
So I've been playing since then. Yeah, I'm so glad he did that, because I think without that I wouldn't have, an innate draw towards music in general.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I think it's just always been something I've wanted to do. And I started doing it professionally when I was about 15. I was like, I'm going to make songs. This is what I'm going to do.
Oh, really? So, 15 years old, huh?
Yeah, I started writing music. The first song I ever wrote that's actually released, I think I wrote when I was 13.
Oh my gosh.
And then, yeah, I was ambitious. I was like, I can do this.
Yeah, totally. Wow.
And then, yeah, my first album that I released, I was 17, and now I'm still going.
So is that Disconnect?
Yeah.
Okay, so you put that out at 17. What was the very first song that you wrote and released?
The first song I released, I actually wrote at 15.
What was the one that you were 13? What song was that?
It's called Stumble. It's not out on anything because I took it down.
Oh.
It's 2 years later. Yeah. It was my first song. And then after a year, I was like, why? What is this? And so I regrouped, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to make an EP instead.
Uh-huh.
And then I picked out songs from that the one I mentioned earlier, the one I wrote when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the, ones that I wrote, at that time, and then compiled it together for an EP that then became my album. So I took down the EP and replaced it with more songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow.
They merged.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
now I have Selfish Topics, and that's my current project.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, tell me about, okay, so you started playing piano, you're in Long Beach, and then you moved to Florida. And how long were you in Florida for?
I want to say math. Was it? I think before I said
when would you
a
remember
number
how
that was
old,
completely wrong.
do you remember how old you were when you moved to New York?
Yeah, I was 17, so I guess 11 years.
Yeah. So So during all those years, yeah. So I mean, 6. So you probably spent elementary school, middle school, high school, all in Florida, then, right?
Right. I switched to homeschooling my sophomore year of high school.
Oh, that's smart. I have my kids in homeschool too. That's awesome.
I was like, I just want to focus on music all the time.
Oh, cool.
And not be here. So yeah. So I did online school, and then I finished it, like all of it, within that 1 year. So I spent the last 2 years of high school just not in high school.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Like just doing music.
I forgot who I talked to. An artist I talked to recently was telling me the same story about how they graduated a year early because they just took all the. She's like, yeah, I did the whole school year in like a month, and I'm like, isn't that insane that you can do a whole year's worth of like? That just shows how much
they
useless
really
stuff there's.
Drag it out.
Yeah. I was like blown away by that.
The first 3 days of school, they're like covering the syllabus, and it's like, okay, we get it.
Right. Yeah, we could read this one piece of paper. We got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was glad that I was able to get that out of the way. And then the college question came into play.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, you see, I could go to college and then have student loans the rest of my life, which sounds fun and all. And as much as I would enjoy that, maybe I could just do this without a degree. And so all the projects that I work on now, I do actually do art too. So,
cool. Like fine
which
arts?
I don't really talk about. I'm sorry?
Like fine arts, like drawing, painting?
Yeah, I do like graphic design stuff.
Oh, rad.
So I actually, it's like I have these two artistic mediums that are my jobs now.
Mm-hmm. And
like I was like, oh, I can afford to live on my own now. Like I did it.
That's
this is
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Here I go. So if anybody tells you that you can't have a career in music, don't listen to them. Or I'm sorry, in arts in general, just don't listen to them, because I did it. I'm doing good. I'm happy right now. So
you're living.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you do the cover for Selfish Topics, or was that made by somebody else? I'm just curious because you said you do graphic design.
For Selfish Topics is a photo, but
yeah.
I guess like I did the like edit for it and put the text on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The Disconnect cover, at the time, I didn't know how to do graphic design at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I had somebody else do it, and she's so talented. I love it so much.
with the electrical plug.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. But now from this point forward, I'm going to be doing all my own album covers. So I'm excited to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about like what were your first performances like when you moved to Florida? Were you like starting bands with people? Like were you just writing songs for yourself?
Well, when we first moved to Florida, I think I was like 7, turning 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, 6 turning 7. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but once you got into like middle school and stuff, were you performing at all?
I did like those silly little like singing and dancing groups for girls. I don't know if you ever like.
Oh, like a musical
those,
theater or something?
It wasn't musical theater. I mean, I did do theater for a little bit, and like I was just, I don't know. I feel like I don't mesh well with like the theater realm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just like more. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, you know how you mesh well with certain environments. So I became more of like the orchestra kid and not the theater kid. But moving on from that,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just like a singing and dance. I don't know how to explain it. Like we did modern songs. Like it wasn't show tunes. We performed them, and we would do shows at like various festivals. It was, I don't know.
That's cool.
It was fun though.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. We'd like, for example, every Halloween we had like a medley of songs that were like Halloween themed songs. And then, one person got to play Michael Jackson for Thriller and like have the coat and stuff. So like 1 year I got to be Michael Jackson, and you have all the zombies and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. That's rad. Yeah.
So I did that all in middle school, and then high school was when I was like, oh, now I can make songs. That was, yeah.
So in high school, you started
I think I'm
writing
making
your own songs?
sense.
No, you make total sense. So when you get to high school, that's when you started writing your own stuff?
Yeah. the reason I think I wanted to start music professionally, well, I know I wanted to start music professionally, is because my mom had encouraged me to do it for a few years. And I just was like, no, I'm too young. I'm going to make something bad, or people can't have a career in music. I was just very doubtful of it. And then I saw Paramore in concert, and Hayley Williams was running up these ramps on the side of the stage and just acting like an absolute wild maniac. Like she was thrashing. She was going crazy. And it was just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I remember just texting my mom from the concert and being like, okay, that's awesome. I would like to do this.
Yeah.
You were right. I'm sorry. And then the rest was history, I guess.
Yeah. So then from that moment on, that's just been your goal.
Yeah.
Let's do music.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
that's cool.
I guess that's the starting point.
Yeah. So it started with the Paramore show. And then from there, was that just like a bunch of inspiration? You went home and just started trying to write songs? What'd you do next?
No, I had already had all my, I think I'm so bad at telling this timeline. So I've always done music, and music's always been in my life, but I considered it like my passion, and then I would have to go get a real job, quote unquote. But I actually, the Paramore concert is what made me have the motivation to release my songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
and pursue
totally.
it professionally.
Yeah, like you decided like there's no other job for me. I'm doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, I'm not going to enjoy anything else. And so I was like 14 at this point. And so I had already had a few songs, and it took me a little bit to compile more to release Disconnect, like a year later, 2 years later.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, you were really young then when that record came out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So with Disconnect, were those songs like that you wrote by yourself, or did you go out and perform them by yourself? Like, or was that part of a band, a bigger project? Tell me about that record.
I've always been solo, and the reason for that is because when it comes to my art, I'm just a control freak. Like with every other avenue in life, like people will be like, where do you want to eat? And I'm like, I don't care. Like I am so laid back about everything except for my art itself. I'm just like, this has to be exactly how I want it, or else I don't want to do it. And so I was like, that wouldn't be cool to other bandmates. So I just completely solo. And, I have people who will tour with me. There are people who they don't necessarily want to be a part of one project. They just want to play on stage.
Sure.
And so I have friends that will tour with me and stuff sometimes, but I've always just been a solo artist.
Wow. So tell me about writing this first thing, or first release, Disconnect. Was that, you said it was all recorded by yourself or done by yourself, as far as like the instrumentation and writing everything, and then like were you playing these songs like at little open mic nights? Like how are you getting exposure and get your name out there? And
that's actually such a good question, because I kind of forgot about that phase, the open mic phase. Before I released these songs, I just kind of had the like written guitar acoustic versions of them. And my mom's method to like get me used to performing on a stage by myself was to tell me to go do open mics. So every like Wednesday she'd bring me, her and my dad would bring me to like just this coffee place called the Whistle Stop. Or no, it was more like, I think it was more like a grill place. Doesn't matter. Stupid detail. You'd go up and sign up your name and then sing 2 songs, and then that was it. And there'd be like 4 people sitting there, and it was the most nerve-wracking thing to me at the time.
I was going to ask you about that. Was it really scary?
Horrifying. Yes, my knees would like physically clack together. Like I remember they'd shake so hard that they would just start like hitting each other. I hated it, but my mom was like, if this is what you want to do, you got to start working up the courage from now. So I'm glad she pushed me to do that. Yeah.
And then how did you end up recording Disconnect? Did you meet people or producers, or was that all done by yourself?
I would say the production process for Disconnect was very different than Selfish Topics, the last release I had, because Selfish Topics, I did all the audio engineering for it.
Oh, wow.
Unless I went to a studio to record like drums or something, but I did all the like computer stuff myself in like my bedroom with my laptop and my audio interface and all that stuff.
Oh,
but
wow.
but Disconnect, I played all the instruments for it and I wrote all the parts. So I'm the only composer on it, but I went to a studio to record everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was so difficult because I couldn't, like, I know what I want to do and I could write the songs, like, or the, you know, the pieces at home.
Mm-hmm.
But once I'd get into the studio and like hear all the pieces, like, you know, the instruments together, I'd be like, this sounded like it'd be good in my head, but like, now I got to mess with it more. And then it would just be really expensive, honestly, to have to go back and like change some stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I think that, you know, I was just starting off. So the lack of skill combined with that is what makes Disconnect so different than Selfish Topics, in my opinion.
Okay.
But now I do everything myself. I can't record drums at home because, you know, I'm in an apartment. So,
sure.
But I'll go to, I'll go to the studio for drums and stuff like that. But I do everything else here.
Wow. And when you put out Disconnect, were you still living in Florida at the time?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
So I was in the like Tampa indie music scene. There was like a local band scene there. That was really fun.
Were you able to play a lot of shows with people?
Yeah, like we were all like good friends, and then it was just kind of like the same group of bands just kind of like doing shows together all the time. And then this indie scene kind of grew to where it was a bunch of people who just like really liked underground music. Mm-hmm. And then we'd have shows like sold out.
Wow.
It was actually pretty cool. It was fun. Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, a lot of the bands in Tampa kind of dispersed and ended up either in LA or in Nashville, like coincidentally. So I don't even know if there's like still much of a scene down there. I have no idea. I haven't even talked to anybody.
Oh, really?
To know. But yeah, but a lot of them moved. So
did you ever like
in a good way? I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, did you ever like play outside of the Tampa area?
Yeah, I toured. I don't even remember what I called the tour, honestly. But yeah, my first tour I was like 18, and I went to a bunch of different states.
Oh, cool.
And played with a bunch of different bands.
Was that with the newest album or the newer release though, or was that with that first one?
That was with that first one. I toured with the second one too.
Okay.
Yeah, before all this quarantine virus madness, I would actually go on the road quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
I love it.
So what was the first tour you did with Disconnect?
I think it was a few months after I released it. My parents were like, hey, this is going to throw you off. Okay, so are you ready for this?
Yes.
So my parents were like, Natalie, we have an idea. And I was like, yes. And they were like, what if we like moved out of our house and like went on the road and like you did a bunch of shows, and then like any moment we weren't like doing that, we can like go stay with your grandpa and like we'll just put all our stuff in storage.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah. And I was like 18. So I was like, okay. No, 17. Sorry. I was like, this. So like, where do we live? And they're like, we don't live anywhere. Actually, that's what will be the plan. And I was like, this sounds terrifying. Let's do it. So we did it. And because my parents have always, my parents are like, they love music, and they're also just like, they don't act like 50-year-olds at all. Sure. They're very spontaneous. So yeah, they were like, we want to do it. We want to be a part of it. So we just went out and did a bunch of shows. And then, after that, we like stayed in New York. And then, you know, now that I'm not doing shows as much because of all this, I was like, okay, I want to live somewhere. So that's why I moved to Nashville.
Oh, okay. So you were doing those
tours. So
that first tour was then with your family then. That's crazy.
All my tours are with my family.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
we actually have like a van.
That's so rad. And how do you book them? Cool. Would they help you book them? Like, how'd you book that first tour?
So the first tour I had somebody, like it was like an outside, like small little boutique thing, book it for me. But then my mom was like, I could do this. So my mom books my shows for me.
That's awesome.
So yeah, my dad's like my roadie. So like he sets up the stage for me.
Wow.
Before I go on. Yeah. So no, they were like really into it. Like when I started doing shows, they were like, oh, this is cool. We like what you're doing.
That's awesome.
We want to do it too. So now my parents actually, my mom like books shows for other people too. She like.
Wow. She became a booking agent.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. She's doing cool.
What about
if anybody listening wants to look up Cage Riot, that's my parents.
Yeah, do it. She'll book a tour for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Was your dad like a musician or anything?
He was a DJ.
Oh, he was. Okay. I was just curious.
So he started DJing. What? I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, I was curious if like he got to relive, like, you know, if you never made it as an artist to kind of be like, yeah, all right, like, you know, a part of it.
No, not like that at all. He never wanted to be like an artist or anything, but he was like DJing was just like his job at the time.
Oh,
and
okay.
He's always been obsessed with music. That's just like his thing.
Sure.
And so he definitely is living out I feel like he's not living out in the sense of like, oh, that's what I wanted to do. And now like not that way, but like more in the sense of like, he always says to me, I could not have asked for a cooler daughter. You literally make the exact music I like.
That's
like,
awesome.
what the heck? And that's it makes me feel nice.
Yeah, totally.
It's nice that he says that to me. But yeah, so it's just purely out of them enjoying it. They just think it's fun.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that they get to tour with you. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people that probably get to tour with their family like that, unless they get much, you know, like unless you're Green Day and you can bring your whole family with 50 buses and stuff. But one of my best friends is actually, she drums with me sometimes. So her name's Brenna, and so I got to tour with my best friend and my parents. So that was like really cool. Wow, yeah.
Like all my favorite people in one area.
Sure. Did you get to see like most of the country and places you had never been before and stuff?
Yeah, that was like, I mean, you're only there for like a day because then it's like, okay, I got to go to the next show. So you get to see like a snippet of it and like, okay, we have 3 hours. What can we do?
Right. Do you like the one tourist attraction in each city?
Pretty much, but it's still fun.
Yeah, that's cool. You put out Disconnect when you're in Florida, and then were you also in Florida when you released Selfish Topics, or was that after you moved?
No, we were already in New York by then.
Okay. You released Disconnect, and then how did you get to New York and then tell me about putting out Selfish Topics?
Well, we put all our stuff in a storage unit, and then we basically just took our essentials like to New York where my grandpa is. And then, so we were always with family and stuff.
Okay. So
gotcha.
Got it. So you sold the house in Florida to get the van to tour, and you were using your grandpa's house as kind of like a home base.
Pretty much, yeah. And it was very confusing to explain to friends because it's like, I didn't say like, hey, I'm moving to New York to anybody. I just like, so then it was just kind of like Natalie Claro, Tampa artist. And I was like, oh, by the way, I'm not there anymore. And they'd be like, well, where do you live? And I'm like, well, technically New York, but also like, that's not like my home. It's like where we stay and like where our stuff is, I guess, but it's not like our house.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it was very weird. I didn't know how to explain to people because I was like, no one does this. And I sound crazy. So yeah, I got to experience, you know, Manhattan and taking the trains all the time. It was Staten Island, New York, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's where my dad was born and raised. So he was like, cool, going back home.
Nice.
So
yeah,
I got to experience that for like a good 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Is that where you recorded Selfish Topics? Were you in New York when you recorded the record?
Yeah. So I did all of that in what was my room. And anytime I needed to record drums, I would go to just like various studios I could find. I never went to like the same one.
Oh, okay. Tell me about approaching that album versus the first one. Because when you put the first songs out, you said you were, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Did the lyrics and the, themes get a little bit more mature as when you put out Selfish Topics?
Oh, definitely. I think just purely out of getting older.
Sure.
I mean, obviously you get more intelligent and then you understand more things about life. So my themes got, they grew along with me. But even my skill itself, I got better at my instruments. I got better at my craft. I got better at understanding what makes a song what it is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I have the goal for the song. How do I get there? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I can already tell that my music's going to grow as I do. And it's going to, I guess, get better, as you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I had more freedom with Selfish Topics because I could spend, 12 hours straight, not looking away from my screen, just editing the same track over and over and over to try to get it perfect. When with
right.
Disconnect, I couldn't do that.
Because you're in school and everything else during that time.
Oh no, just because I didn't have my home studio. It was just,
oh yeah, okay.
I was just kind of winging it. I'd go into the recording studio knowing like how to play the bass line,
Mm-hmm.
but then I wouldn't like be able to edit it or like revise it because it would be like more studio time that you have to pay for. So I'd have to kind of just be like, all right, well, I guess this is it. This
Sure.
is what the song is now.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. And then you have a new video coming out, right, for Discomposure?
I do. I made it in January, and then things kept happening.
Was that's
So
not the first single. What was the first single off the EP?
It was 727.
Okay.
Was the first single. But the reason I haven't released a music video for it is because I want to release it on July 27th if I'm going to do it, because it's too funny to me not to.
That's a good point.
I released a single. Yeah. So I released a single on July 27th last year. And I was like trying to rush a music video, but I was like, I can't finish this in time. Never mind. It's fine. I'll just do it next year. But now it's this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to make a music video in the middle of a pandemic.
Sure.
So I will just wait till next July 27th. I do not care. I don't care if I have new music released at that point. I will literally go back and make a music video for the song.
Well, that song did really well for you. It looks like on Spotify it has a ton of plays. It's the most played song that you have.
I do have to say, I am like surprised. Like, I know it sounds kind of almost like weird to say, because it's like, I know you can have way more streams than what I have, but it's still for like an indie artist.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
And like I have this like weird, strong criticism for myself where it's like no matter what my skill is, I think I suck because I just am never good enough for myself.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, oh, I'm not good, and then I'll go on Spotify and see all the streams, or like I'll pull up my Spotify for artists and like see all the playlists it's on, and I'm like, oh, people like this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like, I guess flattering is the word. It's like, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like this. Whoever you people are,
and
I'm glad you like it.
It must validate the time you spend on it too, and like how much effort
you
put into it.
That's such a good way of putting it. Validating it. That's if I worked so hard on my music and put it out and like no one liked it, I'd be like, I'll just play it in my room then.
Right. Yeah.
Then I want to do this.
Right. It might not give you the same push and urge to keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad people like, I mean, I also am very like, my music's very important to me. So I'm glad people appreciate it as much as I do.
Yeah. I read the topics that you discuss in your songs are pretty heavy.
Yeah. I'd say they're, it's hard not to feel like worried that it seems like I'm trying to be quirky. I don't know how to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So I make it very clear that when I'm talking about my music, I'm like, this is because, voice crack. This is because these are like serious issues that people have to deal with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it just kind of gets swept under the rug a lot. Like when somebody's struggling or going through it, people are like, God, they're so messy. Or like, ugh, they're acting so weird today. Or whatever happened to this person? How come we don't hear from them anymore? And it's because they just cut everyone off because they're like freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it needs to be like discussed more. And it needs to not be an awkward conversation. So that's why I like to make music about those things.
I think that kind of leads into what Discomposure is about, right? Isn't it kind of along those same lines?
Yeah. So Discomposure is about, selfish topics in general. I wrote because I was like, I want these songs to be about my personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Disconnect was kind of about like my observations of the world. And it was like a coming of age thing where it was like, what am I learning about life?
Mm-hmm.
And what am I learning about other people?
Sure.
And then Selfish Topics was like, what am I learning about myself? So even though I wrote the songs with the intention of it being about me, it ended up kind of turning into like, oh, I'm so silly. I'm not the only one who deals with this stuff. Maybe I can use this to help people. Mm-hmm. So Discomposure is about anxiety and worrying and stress and all those things. And it's about how if you don't take the proper steps to try to better yourself, then those things can control you instead of, your emotions will control you instead of being able to control your emotions or being able to control your mind.
Yeah.
So, I guess the music video kind of reflects on that too, because it starts, I'm in, a bedroom and I'm unable to sleep. I'm freaking out. And, then, halfway through the video, the music just cuts out and I'm booking it down the street to a venue and playing music. And that's supposed to represent like the release of stress. And that's supposed to, me searching for something that's going to release that stress from me. And so, I try to use this composure to, I guess, because I've had people like speak to me one-on-one about the song. And I always say to them that like the brain is an organ and there's hope to heal yourself of whatever you're going through. And even though it might feel like it's difficult, like you have to go through a process of elimination and you can't give up fighting. There's hope. If it's in your head, then there's hope to get it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whether it's going to a doctor and getting the proper medication or going to a therapist, or if you can't afford either of those things, doing everything in your power to, cut out toxic things from your life or change your diet, exercise, fix your sleep schedule. Just like, even if it feels like that's not going to fix me, you got to try, because we only got one life. And so we got to be happy. We got to at least do our best to work towards it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I mean, I remember the first time I ever had an anxiety attack. I have to take medication for anxiety and all that stuff as well. And I remember the first time I had an anxiety attack and I didn't know what it was. Like I was eating at like a Mexican restaurant with my dad and he was like looking at me and like my vision started kind of like closing in. It was like weird. It was like tunnel vision. And my dad's like, "Are you okay?" And then him asking me that made me be like, "Well, I don't think so. Am I okay?" And then like my brain's rush, like thoughts are racing. I like ran in the bathroom, like tried to put water in my face and just I didn't know what it was, and then it happened. It started happening more regularly, and then my friend's like, "Yo, it sounds like you have like gnarly panic attacks. You should go talk to a psychiatrist."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh," and then of course they find a million other things wrong with my head. So it is what it is.
Well, I hope that you're doing okay, or that you're.
Oh yeah, totally. Now, I mean, this is like I've been on medication and stuff for like 15 years. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm glad
like
you were able to get those.
Yeah, it wasn't anything new, but it's just like reading, about other people. And like you said, just sharing those things other people that you would never know could relate, and vice versa or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's one of those things that people feel worried that they're going to seem weird or bizarre for having mental illnesses or mental health issues. And so this is why I put out these songs, because I'm glad you were able to say that,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a handful of people I've had on this podcast, either like one girl has a whole record all about mental health, and even a girl I interviewed the other day that had a whole album about her struggle with addiction and stuff. And it's interesting to me that the people that put out what they actually exposing themselves completely are going to get the best response, because it's real and it's relatable. But it's probably the scariest thing to do, I'm sure, putting all those songs out about your feelings.
Yeah. I think that there's some people that, and it's funny because music that doesn't necessarily have a lot of depth to it, I think is also important, because I think people need a break from.
Yeah, they definitely need an escape.
Heavy stuff. Yeah. So like radio music where it's just like, we're dancing, I like this guy.
Sure.
We're dating now. Thank God. I think I'm grateful for music like that. But, I like that there's, a subgroup of people who want complexity.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I can connect with those people.
That's a great way to put it. Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is actually really fun. This is probably one of the best interviews I've had. I feel like this was like a real conversation,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It was fun. So. And the questions you asked were like, I don't know. It made me really reflect on my life, because I've never thought of, the past few years like a timeline. And we were kind of like trying to figure out like when certain things started and when certain events happened. And it was cool. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah. If you are scared, that's a good thing, because your fear is adrenaline and it's your fight or flight instinct. And once you have that click in your mind that you can use that adrenaline to be your fight and not your flight, then you're going to be unstoppable. So just push, go for it. If something seems terrifying to you, like getting up on a stage or releasing something that you feel like is really personal, or worried that you're not going to be good enough, you just got to go into it anyway. Pretend it's like a roller coaster ride and just have that fight. If you don't know where to start that fight, then you can do, if you can find local musicians in your area and ask them like what venues they like, or you can look up like the open mic thing that I did. Find avenues to connect with other musicians in your area. Like, I know there's some people who literally go on Tinder and are like, I'm trying to start a band. Does anybody play bass? And my friend started a band that way. It's really cool. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, just be creative and do whatever you can to keep going. And it's not easy. And there's no like book that tells you how to get it done from start to finish, but the internet is amazing and anyone can find you right now.